r/ask Reddit by online comps. Cops of Reddit, what's the most bullshit sounding excuse you got that actually turned out to be true? Cop here, got a call of a domestic dispute that sounded very heated and a lot of banging was heard. Get to scene and I can hear someone yelling and swearing and brawling. Doesn't sound good at all. Guy answers the door, shirt off and angry, but seems bewildered as to why police had been called. He told me he was building IKEA furniture. Sounds like the most bullshit thing. But, we enter, see the new IKEA furniture half set up and no one else is home. Color me surprised. During a search of a person I pulled out a bag of a sticky dark substance consistent with heroin. The subject had multiple drug priors and is a known heavy heroin user. He immediately tells me it is burnt sugar and he is pissed someone sold it to him. Long story short, when I tested the substance it did not test positive for heroin. This explains the guy with the high blood glucose levels when he showed up for court. 2 meter too fast. I love this sort of shit. Former Marichaussee here. Look it up, it is a Dutch thing. Police but also military. We also had jurisdiction over the American soldiers stationed here. One day we got called over to a possible case of domestic violence. We arrive at the house and the guy opened wearing only underwear. He told us he and his wife were all playing. Of course we didn't trust this and asked to see his wife. After denying us entry we told we would come back with a warrant. He reluctantly agreed to let us enter. So we go in and he opened the basement door and inside was the freakiest sex dungeon. I mean chains, whips, things I couldn't identify hanging on the wall. And in the middle hanging in chains was his butt naked, gagged wife. We asked her, but she told everything was okay. Turned out they were really into some kinky stuff. Asked them to keep the screaming part in the basement and to a minimal. We did the whole thing with a straight face, but as soon as we were in the car, furious wanking ensued. An awesome end to the story. No cops are posting in here anyway, so I'll throw my hat into the ring as a defense attorney. Guy pulled over for impaired driving and charged later with AUI. My boss gets the criminal complaint and the guy shows up for his initial appearance and tells her he hadn't been drinking despite horrifically failing the sobriety test. She's literally sitting next to him and he's obviously wasted again. Disappointing but not uncommon for alcoholics. The deputies arrest him for bail jumping because he drove himself to court that day and while out on bail he's not supposed to drink. He adamantly denies drinking. Blood tests come back. He didn't drink. Dude's diabetic without knowing it and naturally got himself drunk because sometimes when it goes untreated, diabetes can cause symptoms that look just like intoxication. Got him some insulin and the charges dismissed. Edit, since there are so many people with the same questions. As far as I'm aware, the guy did the field sobriety test and failed. The last part of the test is the breathalyzer which he refused. Refusal is an automatic failure in and of itself without failing the nystagmus. Follow the finger, walk, leg lift, and count. He didn't know he had diabetes. I already stated it in the original comment but yeah, dude developed diabetes at some point and wasn't aware he had it until the case. AUI in Wisconsin is what DUI is in other parts of the US. Your first AUI is not a criminal offense, it's just a ticket in Wisconsin. So it would have been at least this guy's second drunk driving accusation. But seeing as diabetes wasn't raised as a defense the first time, my assumption is he probably developed it after. I'm running booking one night. Guy gets brought in for possessing a truly stupendous amount of drugs. Him talking like 2 Rubbermaid totes full of shrooms, a huge bag of weed, and enough heroin to overdose half the county. Well, says he, I'm a the informant, and they told me to make the drop so they could be there and raid the crap out of everybody and let me go for helping. Hurry face left please. Guy is like, I'm telling you dude, they're gonna be super pissed that you country retards fucked up their bust. Whatever, get in the holding cell and shut up. About 3 hours later 3 guys show up, D agents. They're super pissed that our deputies fucked up their bust. I go back to the holding cell to let the guy out and he's just like, they're super pissed huh? Yeah, told you so. I went to a disturbance at a backyard BBQ once. Turns out it was a bunch of Roma gypsies. As I was trying to figure out what was going on I had some old lady approach me and want to talk to me off to the side. She told me she was an informant for the FBI and that if I left, she would be able to get some information on a matter the FBI was interested in. I rolled my eyes and thanked her and said I would be out of there as soon as I could make sure there was no violence going on. Anyway, I determined it was just verbal, so I cleared the call and went back in service. About 15 to 30 minutes later, dispatch radioed me to head back to the station. I got there and got a message to call some FBI field office and ask for a certain agent. I called and sure as shit this agent said he understood I spoke with his informant and wanted to know everything she told me. Blew my mind. Crazy quick. How did the FBI and the field office know so quickly? It's the FBI. Shout out to the agent monitoring this thread. Keep up the good work. Thanks man. I was driving with my fiancée and we went through a roadblock where they checked registration and shit, and we get to the cops and they ask for our registration. I'm sitting in the passenger seat, so I open up the glove box and right there is a clear, unmarked baggie filled to the brim with catnip. I completely forgot it was there and just froze. Wide-eyed, I turned to look at the cop shining his light through my open window and he's frozen too, just staring at the baggie with this look on his face like really? I just started immediately professing OMG I swear to god this is catnip. You can take it and smell it or test it or whatever like I swear. And at this point it's just so ridiculous that I start cracking up and the cop takes it and reasonably deduces I'm telling the truth and he starts laughing and calls his partner over and tells her what happened and they both just cackled away for a minute and sent us on our way. Cat weed. Good thing they weren't cat cops. You mean claw enforcement? God damn it, I hate you so much right now. Just kidding, that was good. r/angry upvote. Okay, so I'm going to tell my crazy story as the person on behind the wheel. My uncle was divorcing his terrible wife. He was no saint, but definitely on the right side of their divorce. The wife was still on the paperwork to take their 2 kids out of the school, even though my uncle had temporary custody while the courts did their thing. She had previously threatened to take them both and just run away, so I don't know why she was still on the paperwork. On picture day that year, she showed up to the school and signed both kids out and disappeared. I was not involved in the crazy process of calling the police and tracking the kids down, but I was pulled from school that day because I had my driver's license and could be an extra pair of hands. They managed to find the kids and they were turned over my grandmother and mom. But my niece was distraught that she would be missing picture day. It was her first time away from her terrible mother, and she was finally allowed to be a cheerleader, a dream in her tiny eyes. So, me having my car and nothing else better to do, offered to take her back to the school. My mom got the school to agree to keep the person there a little longer, but it was going to be by the skin of our teeth that we would make it as this was rural. Okay. We got in the car and I blasted down those dirt roads doing approximate 70 in a 35. Not a good decision on my part, but I was an anxiety-ridden 17-year-old dealing with a nasty divorce and kidnapping for the first time in my life. We, of course, get pulled over. I'm freaking out cause I can't afford that bad of ticket and all the crap that was coming in that day. The cop listened to the story and ignored my barely held in tears and said he would let us off with a warning because he believed the story. And the only reason he believed the story was that he had just pulled over my uncle going the same speed the opposite direction on the same road and go the same story. Edit, my cousin, not my niece. She has that sound in her name and I always get it wrong. And I have not idea if my uncle got a ticket as I was too self-absorbed at 17 to consider asking him. I got pulled over for driving to school at 10 AM. The cop wanted to know why I was skipping school. I explained that a little town's girls basketball team just won state, and since the game was so far away they let us start that day at 10:30 AM. He followed me all the way to the school so he could ask the principal. I still don't know what was illegal about driving to school at 10 AM, but he was kind of a douche. Where do you live? North Korea? Not a cop, but heard it said to 1Ms. Go to a woman who has been attacked by her cat. Her injuries were crazy, covered in blood, her scalp is literally shredded, huge lacerations etc. I know cats are known to do some damage, but the story wasn't fitting, and she was so sketchy about anyone going in her house. Adamantly refuses to let anyone inside. because she thinks they're going to take away her cat. He didn't mean to. He was just excited by the birds. Her cat was a lynx. Mid-July in like 2008. Young kid going 93 in a 55. I swing and he immediately pulls over. Approaching the car, his first words, before I can even start speaking, "My dog died. He hung himself. I gotta get back before my mom gets home." What point JPG? Anyway, he calls other family members. His aunt, uncle and 2 cousins come out to the stop, and between all their sobbing, they verify that the dog had actually hopped over the fence on a leash/runner and couldn't get back over. Everyone's crying now. They showed me a photo on their phone. Apparently they found the dog and called the kid at work and he just left. I didn't even bother verifying further than that. Cousin drove the kid's car back so they could take care of the dog and prepare for mom. Some said that I should have wrote him, but losing an animal sucks enough. He knew he ducked up, and adding financial burden to him wasn't going to help him or me. I'm glad there are cops out there who understand both how horrible losing a dog is and how financially hard it is to get a ticket as a kid. Insurance is already too high. Of course kids should be more careful, and it's not the cops' fault they got pulled over, but you did the right thing in this scenario. I was the one with the excuse. Forgot my keys at friend's place before going out drinking that night. Get home at 2 AM, no keys. Only one of our windows didn't have ghetto bars, so I took the screen out and starting pushing/smacking it up. Locks were on the sides only providing friction. As I'm halfway in, I just feel whump. Got tackled into the house. The officer was still outside, holding on to my ankles. I look up and just said, "I'm astonished by your response time. I actually live here. Let me get up, unlock the door, and give you my ID." So I did, and he stares at it for a second, then says sorry, and sprints off to look for the person they were actually in the area looking for. My dad was a cop and my favorite story of his goes like this. He's a young cop in a rough neighborhood. It's so late that the stoplights are flashing red, meaning treat it like a stop sign. Out of nowhere this pink caddy goes rolling through the intersection. My dad pulls him over. A big black dude was driving. The caddy had fur interior, dice in the mirror. A real pimp car, if you know what I mean. My dad goes, "Sir, do you know you ran that light back there?" And this guy says, "Officer, I do believe I got between the flashes." My dad was laughing so hard he had to let the guy go looking for. Not a cop, but I have a pretty good one. In high school some of my buddies sold weed, driving around in a car with a scale, baggies, and 4 ounces at any given time. One day T&D decided to go to a really good taco stand for lunch in between deliveries. He is driving. They are making their way downtown when he starts laughing. "E, did you see that?" T, "No, what?" "E, I'll turn around. You gotta see this." T, "Dude, don't get us pulled over. WTF, chill." He makes a U-turn and turns down a street. Nothing there, so he stops in front of a random house to look around. T, "WTF was it? Just drive." E, "I just saw a dude pushing a stroller with 2 wiener dogs in it." T, "You're retarded." As soon as he started driving again, a cop car pulls up behind them and lights them up. Cop 1, "What are you guys doing?" E, panicking a bit. "I saw a guy pushing a stroller with wiener dogs in it and had to show my free. Cop 2, "How come you're parked in front of this known trap house and your car smells like dope?" T, "Silence. See this guy with a stroller and cops get out of the car. Car gets searched. They find all the shit. As they are getting loaded into the back of the cop car all handcuffed up, Cop 2 just stops. Cop 2, "Hey Cop 1, look at that." Cop 1, "No shit." Everyone looks up at this old guy pushing a stroller with his 2 wiener dogs poking their heads out. Cops burst out laughing. They both got charged with possession/trafficking. Good times. Edit. Wow, I've never had a comment blow up like this. Since everyone loves stories about E so much, here's another one for ya. A while before the infamous wiener dog incident, he had to get new tires for his car. Brought it into a local tire shop and left it there for the day. Being the brilliant kid that he was, he left his stash in his favorite hiding spot, thinking nobody would ever find it. The hiding spot was in his spare tire compartment under the carpet in the hatchback/trunk area. The guy changing his tires over was courteous enough to make sure his spare had the manufacturer recommended amount of air pressure in it. He helped himself to a knot of high quality bud while he was in there. He was pissed. He told us about it while we were blazing that night. We all laughed, thought it was great. He didn't. He strutted into that tire shop the next day and demanded to speak with the manager. Told him that his employee stole something from the back of his car and he wanted it back. When he refused to tell the manager what was stolen, the manager basically told him he couldn't do anything if he didn't know what it was and suggested he call the cops if he wants to escalate things. He didn't call the cops. Like and subscribe and let this cat purr. Please leave a comment and watch my other Ask Reddit videos. Have a nice day. Be happy.